All right, so we've got those copied down. All right, 14.5, triangles and angle sums. Now, a couple of things we need to know. All right, first of all, we need to know triangles. Okay, we've listed the different types of triangles in our little box there, and you put those in your notes. Triangles, first of all, have three sides. Okay, obviously. Okay, but that's why it's called a triangle. Okay, there's three sides and three angles. Okay, it's really three angles that they're concerned about, but without three sides, you can't have three angles. Okay, so number two then is three angles whose sum, once again, what's the word sum mean? What? Answer to an addition problem. Whose sum is equal to 180 degrees. So if I take the three angles in a triangle and add them up, they will always equal 180 degrees. If they don't, then you don't have a triangle. You have some other type of figure. Okay? But it's always equal to 180 degrees. So if I looked at each one of these triangles up here, 1, 2, 3, each one of those angles would have to be equal when I add it up to 180 degrees. Now, in an equilateral triangle, it says all the sides are congruent. Okay? Well, if all the sides are congruent, then all the angles have to be congruent. And the way they'll show that is they'll take it and do this. They'll take and draw one little line like that around those angles. Okay? Now, on an isosceles triangle, only two of the angles are congruent. And they'll do that right there, and then they might do that right there. Okay, let me go back up to that equilateral and erase that little bitty line, because it looks like I have two there. Okay, you'll see that I have one line, one angle here, two line angle there. That means that two line angle is not the same measurement as these two. Okay, so if my angles have to equal 180 degrees and all three of them are the same, what is it going to be? In an equilateral triangle, if I have to have 180 degrees for all three angles and all the angles are exactly the same, what is the angle going to equal? What is one of those angles going to equal? Huh? No. Let me put it in terms that you'll understand. I'm going to give Brother Isaiah, Brother Michael, and Brother Jonah the same amount of money, and I have $180. How much is each one going to get? Wow. You got to know that, or I could cheat you. I could give you 20 and say, hey, there's your money, and you'd go, okay. Noah. $60, yes. They're each going to get $60. Because what did you do? You divide 3. I'm going to do it equally. I do 3 into 180. So on an equilateral triangle then, each one of these angles have to be 60 degrees. So they all have to be the same, and they all have to equal 180 degrees when you add them up. Okay? So, equilateral triangle has 60-degree angles. Now, on an isosceles triangle, just two of the angles have to be the same. Okay? So that could be a different deal. Okay? An isosceles triangle is an equilateral triangle as well. Because an isosceles triangle, it goes backwards. I said it backwards. Equilateral triangle is an isosceles triangle. Because an isosceles triangle has to have two angles that are the same. Because it has two sides that are the same. Okay? The number of the sides that are the same translates into the number of angles that are the same. Okay? An isosceles triangle has at least two sides congruent. Well, an equilateral has three sides congruent, so it is also an isosceles, okay? But an isosceles, okay? So now, scaling is the one that has no sides congruent. So it won't have any angles that are congruent. It can't. If a triangle doesn't have any sides that are the same length, then you can't have any of the angles that are the same degree. Okay? And so we don't have any angles in a scalene triangle that are the same. Now, on that equilateral, isosceles, remember, those two angles are usually the same. Okay? Now, understand that I could flatten out that triangle. Okay, let's say I did a triangle like that right there. Okay? Understand that this side and that side are still the same length. Okay? Well, that bottom one's bigger. Bottom one's bigger. The reason I know that is because of this. Look at these angles. There, and there. Now, obviously, this top one is bigger, a lot bigger than these side ones. Okay? The side ones are the same. These are the same. Here and here. Okay? Now, what kind of angle is that angle right there? Is that an acute angle, an obtuse angle, or a right angle? Emily? Obtuse angle. So, this is obtuse. Okay? So this would be an isosceles, and I always spell this wrong. I always need to look. I always want to put, I don't know why, but I always try to put the C with the first S instead of the second S. Got too many S's in it. Isosceles, obtuse, triangle. That's how you would label that triangle with its sides and with the angles. Okay? Is by classifying it. It has two sides that are the same length with two angles, the same measurement, and it has one obtuse angle. Okay? Now, a triangle, when it is obtuse, can only have one obtuse angle. Remember, what does the word obtuse mean? Jonah. Okay, it's greater than 90. Obviously, we usually stop at 180. So it's greater than 90. So, could I have in a triangle three angles that are 91, 91, and 91? Why, Maya? Yes, no? Y'all are both doing the shakes. Can I have, this is for the whole class, can I have three angles in a triangle that are 91, 91, and 91? Yes or no? Who thinks no, raise your hand. Who thinks yes, raise your hand. Who's not sure, raise your hand. Okay? Well, what does 91 plus 91 plus 91 equal? Well, 91 plus 91 is 182. So what is the extra 91, Noah? Yes, 273. Now, is 273 180 degrees? No. So it can't be that. Remember, a triangle has to equal 180 degrees when you add up all the measurements of its angles. Okay? There's no exceptions to that. All right? So, that's how we would classify that particular angle. Now, the other two ways that we classify by their angle measures is acute triangle. An acute triangle has three angles that are acute. Acute angles are angles that are less than 90 degrees. Okay? They are less than 90 degrees. That's what an acute angle is. So your right triangle, notice the little square there. We've talked about the little red square. It means it's 90 degrees. A right triangle has one 90-degree angle. And then it has two acute angles. Okay, one of them is going to be 90, and the other two will have to be acute because it won't equal 180 if they're not acute angles. Okay? So, let's look at a few triangles here that we can try to classify. Everybody look at number 1. Look at number 1. Let's see here. I'm going to, give me 1 second here. Everything decided to shut down. Okay, where's that? There. All right. Where'd they put it? Right there. All right. Let's look at these 3 triangles, and we're going to classify them by their name for measurements of sides and angle measurements. And then we're going to give the measurement that's missing. Okay? So, first of all, number 1, how many acute angles does it have? How many? How do we know? How many do you know right now, without knowing what n is? How many acute angles does it have? So you know what n is? Okay, so you know that it's got 2 for sure before we find out what n is. Okay, well, a triangle, if it has 2 acute angles, it either has to be a right triangle or an acute triangle. Okay? Well, we've got to find out that if we take 30 plus 57 plus n, that will equal 180 degrees. Well, what's 30 plus 57? 87. So 87 plus n equal 180. Well, to solve that, I just go 87 plus n minus 87 equal 180 minus 87. Those 2 are going to cancel, leaving me with n. And what's 180 minus 87? What? 93? You sure? Positive? All right, 93. Okay? So, this angle then is obtuse. It's 93 degrees, and that's larger than 90, so it's an obtuse. So, that tells me none of the angles are the same. So, this one is a scalene obtuse triangle. And the n is equal to 93 degrees. So that's your answer for number 1. That's your answer for number 1. Okay? So let's look at number 2. Number 2 looks like what kind of triangle? What? Isosceles, okay. Yeah, it looks like an isosceles or maybe an equilateral, but we know it's not an equilateral. Why? Well, but also we said if all sides are congruent, what are the angles? They're all congruent, right? Well, is 63 and 54 congruent? No. So we know it can't be an equilateral because 2 of the angles aren't the same. And we also know that an equilateral has 60-degree angles. So we know it's not equilateral, even though it's pretty close, okay? But it does look like an isosceles. The way we can figure out is we take 54 plus 63 plus n equal 180. 54 plus 63 would be what? 117. Plus n equal 180. So I subtract 117 from both sides. That cancels. What is 180 minus 117? I'll give you a hint. It's already up there, but anyway. Noah. What? 63. 63 degrees is what n is. So that's 63 degrees. So two of my angles are exactly the same. So that means isosceles, okay, does it have three acute angles? Yes. So that's acute triangle, where n equals 63 degrees. Okay? So, I want you to do number 3 on your own. Now that we've done 1 and 2, do the same thing for number 3. Okay, look in your book because I'm going to transfer another figure to my page here while you are doing that. All right, who's got the answer for me for number 3? I first of all want to know what the missing angle is. Okay? The missing angle would be what? Noah? 33 degrees. What? 33 degrees. 33 degrees. Are you sure? No. It's not 33. Jonah? 23 degrees. Remember, it's 180, not 190. That's a common mistake that people do with triangles and when we're talking about these next couple of sections. Okay? So it's 23 degrees. So that angle is 23 degrees. So we know that it has an obtuse angle and two acute angles. So what is the name of this triangle then? Emily, what do you think? Scalene, yeah. Scalene. And what's the other one? We got to take one from each column. Scalene and what? What? Obtuse. Good. Obtuse triangle. Okay? Now, and we said that n is equal to 23 degrees. All right, now, we're moving on to number 4. Number 4, they give us this figure, and they want us to find the missing links. Okay? Well, we've got to find what we know about triangles to help us. Okay? So, if this, use a different color here, let's go blue. If this right here is 90 degrees, then what does these two angles have to be? Do what? 90 degrees, because if I take a straight line, it's not really straight. If I take a straight line and intersect it straight up and down, and I put a 90-degree angle here, then over here has to be 90 degrees. So that means that this one here is 30 degrees, then, whoa, drop my pen. Then what does B have to be? Staley, 60 degrees. B has to be 60 degrees. Okay? Now, so that answers number 5. So I'm sort of going in a different order here. Okay? So if this is 30, and this right here is 50, okay, isn't that just a straight line that's being intersected by another line? If this is 50, these both, 1 and 2, have to equal 180 degrees. So if this is 50, what does angle 1 have to be? 130. So A has to be 130. Because these two together, 50 plus 130, must equal 180. Okay? So then now I have this being 60 plus 50 right here, plus C has to equal 180. So 60 plus 50 is what? 110. Plus C equal 180. So what does C have to be? What? 70. C is equal to 70 degrees. So 70 degrees, A is 130 degrees. Okay? So pretty simplistic if you know what you're, remember basically about triangles. And also you have to remember what we talked about with transversals. You know, when we talked about, remember we talked about this several times now, angle 1, angle 2, regardless if it's connected to a triangle, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay? Any questions? Jonah? Yes. On 1 through 3, you've got to have all of this right there. All those have to be there. Okay? That's the answer for each one of those and how you get them. Staley? No, it doesn't matter which one. If you go isosceles, acute, and then put n equals 63, or you put n equals 63 and goes, isosceles, acute. It doesn't matter. And also, if you put acute, isosceles, usually it's the other way around. Usually they'll go, equilateral, this, like an equilateral triangle would be an acute triangle. Because an equilateral triangle has 3 60-degree angles. Each one of those are acute. Okay? Yes. As long as you don't poke your eye out. Okay? All right. So our homework. We're going to do 14.5, 1 through 20. Okay? 14.5, 1 through 20. Only got about 30 seconds left, so don't have any time to do it.